All right, hello, Idiots on Parade, the Too Ugly for TV podcast. We mock the news so you don't have to. I am Nathan Timmel, stand-up comedian in Iowa City. With me, as always, is Jake Vevra, stand-up comedian in New York City. Hello,
How's
Jake.
it going? How you doing?
All is well here. Joining us today is Chris Sear. Are you St. Louis or St. Louis adjacent? I knew you were in that neighborhood.
Sure, I'm in the city of St. Louis. Yeah, so
St. Louis proper. All right.
You always
Thanks
have
for being
to
on the show, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's jump in. The first story I wanted to hit is we found every week we find the world's stupidest person, and this week we really got a good one. Rex Huppke, in my opinion, I'll use this sentence. He's a grade A moron. On Tuesday, Rex released this thought piece, this opinion piece, this brilliant intellectual article. Will Trump chicken out of the presidential debate? Probably. He's a grade A coward. And then it's just nonstop until we see him set foot on the debate stage Thursday in Atlanta. There's a strong chance the former president chickens out. He doesn't do this. He's a chicken. He's a cow. Hey, guess what? He showed up, fuckhead. Maybe you shouldn't have put out your big I believe Trump is going to do this piece on Tuesday. Why do people feel the need to get their fucking foot so far in their mouth? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Fucking the MAGA idiot asshole Republicans were all saying Biden's going to be pumped up on uppers and caffeine pills. And
he proved them wrong.
Yeah, he proved them fucking wrong.
In your face, guys that thought he'd be on Adderall.
Yeah. And then the Democrats said that Trump was going to interrupt and talk through, even though there's he didn't do that either. I mean, everybody that said what was going to happen got it wrong. Every single person got it wrong. So here's an idea. Fucking don't guess what's going to happen. Just report what happened after the fact. You fucking idiot media cockspits.
Well, yeah, I mean, for one thing, I would have gotten the. I think it was a dumb take to have 2 days before, because I would, if it was a month ago, I would have seen right in that article, because it's like I could see that happening a month ago. And you did, to be fair to the person that wrote this article, you did start to see about a week out Trump saying stuff like, "Oh, it's rigged. It's an unfair debate. It's CNN."
Right.
I don't. He was his own somebody on his campaign basically got a CNN interview booted or ended early because they went on and just started trashing Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. And whoever was, I don't remember who was running the interview. They were like, "Hey, if you're going to talk shit on my coworkers, then fuck you. I'm ending this interview." But they said that in fancy news person speak. But they basically told them to go fuck themselves and ended the interview. So it's like, I get some of that writing was on the wall. And to be fair to this person, not a lot to report on with the debate. It's like, well, it's going to happen. Hasn't happened yet. One guy
So just come up with the weirdest scenario.
Yeah, right. It's like one guy's pretty old, one guy's really, really old, and we don't know. One guy's going to stutter, one guy's going to lie, and it's going to. What do you want? What more do you want?
That was the one thing that did happen. One guy fucking lied his ass off nonstop, and the other one stuttered, lost his place, and just. The thing that bothers me is the Democratic apologists. I don't under politics is perception. That's one of the first things I learned as a kid. Politics is perception. Oh, but he's doing a good job as president. Great. Oh, behind the scenes, he's great. Oh, he doesn't debate well. Great, great, great. All they have to do is take a clip one of several clips of Biden stammering, getting lost, staring up in his face, and just fucking run it like an ad. And
No, we vote on the movie
We've been talking
trailer.
over you.
We vote on the movie trailer. People need to know that, right? By now, right? Like, it doesn't matter how good the product you have is. If your commercial doesn't work, no one's gonna try it out. And that's what we saw. That was a shame. The guy predicted that Trump wasn't going to show up, because down in the article he did say basically, well, if he does show up, it's going to be a bunch of lies. And he could just posted that or published that, and he would have been like, "Oh, look, you predicted the future."
Right.
Instead, came up with this weird, like, I don't know, going up 2 days before, like, it was clear he was going to show up because he was ready for a fight.
He's not pulling out 2 days before. He's not.
No.
He would look stupid as fuck if he pulled out 2 days before. Anything other than, I had an arm bitten off by a shark and here's the stump.
Yeah.
2 days before, they're going to be like, you're making this up and you're scared, and you're even if you're complaining that it's unfair and the rules are stacked against you and it's CNN and that's not your network. Like, okay, fine, but you knew this over a month ago when you
Yep.
agreed to the terms. So there's no good way to back out 2 days prior. And I would have said the same thing for Biden too. Anybody who's even a
Right.
little bit in the middle would have been going, "Oh, dude, it's because he's too old and he's too afraid to debate." But like that's
Right.
what they
Yeah.
would have been saying if Biden pulled out too. Yeah, but 2 days in advance, you can't pull out of a debate other than some weird catastrophe happening.
And that's what pissed me
Right.
off about Biden is the very next day they have clips of him at a rally
Oh
shouting
yeah.
and you know, like full of piss and vinegar. It's like, okay, if he's old, then schedule the fucking debate for 3 p.m. I mean, if that's when he's awake,
Yeah.
schedule it for 3 p.m. because they kept the talking points hit immediately. Oh, he has a cold. Okay, if he had a cold, how did he make a miraculous recovery for
Right.
the rally the next day? Just
Yeah.
either
That
go
North
in prepared or
Carolina
fucking
rally was
don't go
like
in. And
so
he
different.
all week long we heard, oh, Biden's holed up in Camp David preparing. Really? And then he's like, oh, with the Medicare and the wait and the abortion. Like he was fucking all over the place.
I will say
Yeah.
this. I will vote for Biden's severed head in a jar with his lips being moved up and down by AI over Trump. That said, I will vote against Biden unless they cut his head off and put it in that jar with the AI because we saw what it looked like attached to his body. It wasn't good. And that way, because now they're sitting there going, oh, he got a cold. Really? I've had a cold before. It never did that. COVID didn't do that to most people. What are you talking about?
Right.
And if people go, oh, well, the president, he seemed to be staring off. It'd be like, well, his head's in a jar. What do you want, you ableist bastard? Come on now. He's doing better than you do with your head in a jar. Plus, the unemployment's down to 2% ever since his head was in that thing. I say we put all the president's heads in jars.
I got a
Yeah,
question
that
for
North
both of
Carolina
you.
rally, he did come out he came out and he said himself, he's like, I know I did a bad job, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he's got all the energy in the world. That's like, if only you'd
Well,
seen this
State of the
ad.
Union. State of the
Yeah,
Union, too. I
exactly.
mean, he was great at the State of the Union.
Okay, I got a
Yep.
question for both of you. I don't think I've ever asked you this before, Jake, but you said
But
something that
wait,
made me think of it.
before the question, I just want to say to that point, my grandfather had Alzheimer's, like really, really bad, like to the point that at the end, I mean, he couldn't talk, he couldn't communicate, he was, I mean, nonverbal basically. It was, he completely, his brain was gone. That said, up until very, very late stage, he would have good days and he would have bad days. There would be days where even when it was fairly far along, to where like, yeah, this guy shouldn't be working or driving or anything. Even fairly far along, he would have days where he would seem like he was a 40-year-old man again. And then the next day he could barely speak. So I think that like Biden's not nearly as far along as he was, and he would still have good days. So I think for the next, 4 years, whatever, you're going to see him sounding fucking great some days, and you're going to
Hmm.
see him sounding not great. You're going to have State of the Union days. You're going to have debate last Thursday days. That's just the way it goes at that age. I mean, it's that way with everybody with Alzheimer's, old age, whatever. That's how it goes. He's got good days. He's got bad ones.
Well, actually, that
Right.
leads into what I was going to ask for both of you. Chris, you can go first. Um, when Trump was running in 2016, there was a lot of talk of, oh, sure, he's never been a politician, but he's going to surround himself with the best. He's going to and he obviously didn't. People go, so why the fuck don't the Democrats come out right now and say, yeah, Biden has his good and his bad days, but look at who he surrounded himself with. He's not firing everyone every other day or getting resignations
Right.
like the last four, the previous administration, and unemployment's down. Factories are being built. The plant in Ohio. Why don't they say, yeah, Biden? Take the Trump playbook and say, we have surrounded Biden with the best people. He's sort of a figurehead because people are calling him a puppet right now. And here's my favorite
Right.
thing. The people that are calling him a puppet saying, well, the reason is he's just a puppet. It's a shadow government anyway. Okay, great. But if there are people pulling the strings, wouldn't they want to pull him out and say, now let's get someone in there that's a better figurehead? Either way, what do both of you think of that idea? I think, fuck it. Just
Yeah.
sell the idea that he is a puppet or he is a figurehead, but look at what the administration has done.
Yeah, that's the thing the Republicans always did. Like, if you go back to George W. Bush, right? It was always like, yeah, he's kind of a simpleton, but he's going to have the best people around him. And then they pointed to his staff, right? And then Trump kind of shit the bed on that when he claimed it. But Biden's got evidence he has the best people around him. Like, he's accomplished a lot. But they're just Democrats are bad at marketing right now. The only thing that you hear about Biden from like And granted, I hang out with some incredibly progressive people who make me look like I'm right wing sometimes. But all I hear from them is, his stance on Palestine right now, because
Sure.
there's no good messaging in the Democratic Party around it, because maybe there is no good message to have. But you get your ass kicked by your own team on that, and then it's easy for the Republicans to say, well, look at this doddering fool, and no one wants to step in and defend him. But like he does, he has some of the smartest people around him, and they're kicking out good policy. And I can't believe that that's not where we go with it, right? If the right now it's all like, well, CEO Trump's going to run the country like a business. Well, Biden already did that, right? He already realizes he probably shouldn't be at the head of this corporation, so he's hired some good people to be underneath him and run their individual departments. And that should be our commercial.
Jake, I want to go sideways off something Chris said. The progressives. Was it one of the squad lost a primary?
Yeah, Jamal Bowman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, people are getting sick of that fucking far progressive. It's like the middle America has been sick of it for a while. It's just been these pockets of, like you said, AOC is like Trump in her district. She can say whatever she wants. But I thought it was neat that if we could get rid of fucking Ilhan and
but this is the Bronx, though,
Michigan
man.
woman.
It's not like that's some swing district either. Bowman's a different thing. People are trying to equate that to everybody else that's on the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Bowman's kind of a shithead, man. This is the guy who pulled the fire alarm, and they said
he did.
Oh, I don't know what happened. I don't know. It's like,
he said he did it because he didn't want to miss the vote. It's like that was. It's like a high school kid that pulls the fire alarm because he wasn't prepared for the test.
It was nuts, man.
Support that. Think outside the box,
Right. It's sort of, but that's the thing. It's like, okay, you're either so nuts that you pulled in a fire alarm to delay a vote, or you're so shit stupid that you're like, the door is locked. I'll bet this fire alarm looking thing is the key. Oh no, there's a bell ringing. So it's like you have to pick under that point. Are you fucking crazy or are you a liar? You know what I mean? Like, are you crazy? Are you stupid? Are you a liar? That's not a political thing. That's not a that's not a. So even people who kind of agree with him on Palestine and stuff are the fire alarm thing does not bode well for him. And then he had that rally right before the vote where he's like in a tank top and chanting his own name and proclaiming himself the hip hop congressman when no one else has called him that.
I missed that
except for him on that stage. Dude, look at it's a fucking douchey speech. Then I get sort of being like, I'm here with people in my district. I'm dressed down. I'm not a formal guy by any means. I don't give a shit about that. I didn't even button up this shirt, even though we're recording this. So, like, that said, if I was running for Congress when I'm getting heavily primaried, and I'm kind of known as a bit of a loose cannon and a fucking dumb nut job, I would throw a suit on over my tank top and not whirl a stool around my head and fucking yell crazy shit. It's not good. And the people are viewing this as like, this is the Democratic Party pushing back against the, pro-Palestinian thing. I think he's not a good representation of that, because he's also got quotes where he's like denying that any sexual assault happened to women, any rape on October 7th or whatever. Like, he says crazy shit. It's not just like, hey man, we should really rein back our ally from clearly just decimating entire city blocks of what is almost all civilians with a lot of these bombings. And right. They got to go into the tunnels, sure, but we got to pull them back, because we're in like many tens of thousands of civilian deaths, many of them children at this point. He's not just saying that. He's like fucking like, denying Hamas did anything wrong, kind of. So it's like, that's never going to play well, especially in New York. There's a lot of Jewish people in New York. You know what I mean? And they don't like.
No, wait, what?
And a lot of Jewish people in New York certainly aren't pro Netanyahu, but they also don't want you running around going, "Oh, that's all made up about Hamas, committing sexual assault." Like, they don't want to hear that shit either. So that's going to get you fucked in a district like that.
That's the worst part. There's so much anti-Netanyahu sentiment that you could capitalize on and come in with a bit of a middle ground on this to win the
Yeah,
politics side and still
yeah.
have the right viewpoint. And like we just completely fucked
Chuck
up.
Schumer, the highest ranking official who's Jewish in American history, came out on the Senate floor against Netanyahu, saying not just like, "Hey, we should," but when we write him this $20 billion
time for him to go.
check, we should tell him to settle down a bit. Like he said, they should vote his ass out. That is Chuck Schumer. That is the highest ranking Jewish American politician of all time, saying Netanyahu should be voted out of office. So there is absolutely a middle ground to do this. There is a way to do this without using anti-Semitism. The Jamal Bowman does not do that. Hence, he doesn't represent the vast majority of anti-Netanyahu sentiment in this country or on the left. You know,
right.
Well,
no, he's helped that side that
go pretty hard at it. They just live in safer districts, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of helps people turn Netanyahu into the 2001 Giuliani, right? It's like everybody's sick of him, and then this happens, and now he's a hero again.
Yeah,
and all you have to do is remind people that Yitzhak Rabin is dead because of Netanyahu. Right, like Netanyahu ginned up conservatives so much that Rabin gets killed, and everyone loved Rabin.
Yeah,
and you know that's where we are now. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean he intentionally kept the PLO from having any kind of legitimacy and kept Hamas strong because he didn't want to have an actual two-state solution. He didn't want the PLO to have real power. And so he was like, I'm gonna basically keep funding going to these Hamas guys. I'm gonna so that they take power away from the PLO, and it completely fucking bit him in the ass. And his own, for the most part, I mean, his own country's fucking sick of that. I mean, they see what happened there.
I hadn't forgotten that, but it does remind me that it's almost a parallel with what we did with the Taliban in Afghanistan. Oh, Russia's bad. Let's fund the Taliban. Oops, now it's biting us on our ass because we neglect them. Yeah, but it's the same thing as like, oh, these Hamas upstarts, they're going to keep the PLO in line. Oops. And once the PLO had no power, Hamas swept right in.
I mean, it wasn't like direct funding. It wasn't like direct funding like we were doing with the Taliban. It was more like, I'm going to sort of let these guys do what they do there. And I'm going to let funding go from other places that I could stop. Just so that
because they were the enemy of the enemy is my friend. He's like, oh, Hamas is cute. Let's let them beat up the PLO so we don't. Yeah.
But they couldn't. He didn't publicly do it like the Taliban. Like he can't because they were mostly launching rockets into Israel. It's just they were, taking power away from the PLO.
You got to remember that he created the legitimacy of Hamas in a lot of people's views, though, because like Hamas didn't seize power with weapons. They were elected to run politics in the Gaza Strip, right? Like they were the elected political authority because Netanyahu like funded all of the efforts to split off their political efforts from their military efforts. So it's even worse than the Taliban in that like you basically stood them up and said, no, these guys are all right now. They can totally run you if you elect them. And then you back candidates to split the vote to where like I think they only came in with something like 35% of the vote.
That's exactly that a lot of people don't realize. The PLO had 2 people running in the general election. That would be as if let's say Bernie Sanders somehow
no. We got it already. That was Kennedy taking on Carter. We already know what that was the same thing. Kennedy taking on Carter and at the convention not conceding. So and then the problem was that after Hamas got elected, they're like, all right, here's the rest of your elections right here. No more.
No, this was
again. They never had another election.
They literally had 2 PLO candidates on the ticket and 1 Hamas candidate. Hamas at that point, the Hamas candidate does not need to do that good. I mean, they don't.
Just needs the bump. You get to split the vote. All right.
Yeah, and you don't have to go back as far as Kennedy Carter. I mean, Hillary's problem was a lot of Bernie supporters voted Bernie even after Bernie wasn't in it anymore. So, I mean, that's it's the exact same thing.
But I'm glad you brought that up because to go back to our thing with Biden, I think that's why they have to stick with Biden right now is because if that old saying, Republicans fall in line, Democrats fall in love. If you now yank this guy for being old, it's not like he wasn't old as shit a week ago. So, I mean, it wasn't like he was old as shit before the primaries.
Are there any true Biden people like I love Biden so much. He's my guy. Nobody loved him in 2020. He just happened to win South
Yeah.
Carolina, and then they just handed it to him. Buttigieg and
Yeah, but
Bernie were
Political
kicking
wonks.
ass in 2020.
Yeah.
Problem is, if you throw up any candidate right now that people didn't vote on in the Democratic Party, it's going to split them. It's going to split them. They're going to be like, this is clearly just some guy that you wanted in there, whoever it is, some guy, some lady, whatever. This is clearly somebody who you just wanted to shove down our throats and weren't honest about and let us vote on in the primaries. And it is going to kill. It is going to kill the Democrats in the general election.
Right.
I'm not saying the situation with Biden's ideal. I'm saying the only worst thing they could do is by doing what they did with LBJ in 68, and they lost to Nixon in a landslide because the party that falls in love as opposed to the one that falls in line, they don't like this whole, hey, we just realized this guy was old. So I know you guys already voted in the primaries and everything, and that's all done, but we went eeny, meeny, miny this guy. So just vote for him. Just give the shit. Like, that's a terrible
the
way to do it.
primaries were a joke. But Chris, Jake has seen this before. I get up on Sunday, I play pickleball for 3 hours, and then I sit down.
Oh, no.
And then I get this Charlie horse. My leg just locked up something fierce. The last time it did it, I was in pain for like 2 days. But yeah, that's what happened is I just had a horrible Charlie horse. But yeah,
I thought you were just really into the political discussion.
No, my leg just shot searing pain. Jake has seen it happen before. But the primaries were all bullshit because they didn't allow anybody to run. Now, people, the neat thing with the Republicans,
they had an incumbent. They had an incumbent who they said is going to do 4 more years. That's why they were.
Wait a minute, there was Marianne Williamson. Come on, we had options.
But her horoscope said she was going to lose to Trump. I mean, I checked her horoscope. It said she was going to lose to Trump.
I read my seer stones. I threw some tea leaves into some stones, and it said that she could have at least won Maryland. She could have won Maryland.
I liked her whole policy on all we need is love, though. I was like, I could get behind.
There we go. There we go.
All right, let's shift gears, get away from politics. Kind of. This is still political, I guess, in a way. Jake and I have discussed this in passing, I believe, a couple times, but an update now. Disney is probably the dumbest fucking company in the world, or at least they were for a little period before Iger returned. Disney tried to get Gina Carano's Mandalorian lawsuit quickly dismissed, but the judge said not so fast. They fired her from the Mandalorian because of tweets, or she changed her pronouns to beep, bop, boop instead of... All Disney had to do is fire her. All they had to do is say, yeah, we don't need her character anymore. That's literally it. You're fired. Why? Instead, they said,
just kill her off with a blaster. She's literally dodging lasers every episode. Just have an episode where it's like, oh, I saved when I should have sagged. Why did I
the one stormtrooper who hit a target?
Last episode.
Yes. Instead, Disney comes out and says, we are firing her because we disagree with her political stance. I disagree with her political stance, but you know what? She gets to have it. And if you don't want her to, so now it becomes a free speech thing. Now, this is neat, though, because the Supreme Court ruled that corporations are people and can donate all they want. So do people get free speech? So maybe they can argue that their free speech says we don't want to work with her as much as her free speech says I can say what it's going to be interesting. Disney... I don't want to say that Disney deserves to lose this lawsuit, but they deserve to have it, that they have to spend whatever money they're spending because they were so fucking dumb and didn't just fire her. They had to make a statement. Hey, corporations, don't make statements. Just say, yeah, we don't need the character anymore. Just fucking fire people. You don't have to get involved with the bullshit.
Instead of calling it political stance, you know what I mean? They should be, if they were smart, they'd be leaning into the transphobia angle. And be like,
I think that's what they're going to do is
transphobic joke. Like that's what I think that would probably carry a little more water than we don't like who she voted for.
It depends on where it gets filed because you end up for random like, oh, she files in Oklahoma. You do the trans thing. Oklahomans are going to say no, fuck Disney.
Well, how's she going to do Oklahoma? Yeah. This would be where they're going out of, right? This would be like LA or something.
People file lawsuits fucking everywhere.
Oh, it could be assigned in any district. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to file. It's fucking absurd.
But how's she gonna? Don't you have to file it in the state where whatever happened? I mean, wouldn't it have to?
You just have to come up with some kind of loose, arbitrary justification for why it applies to the district you want to file in.
So Chris is right.
If she has an uncle that lives in Oklahoma that she was really close to, she could say she's an Oklahoma resident. and she was wronged. So
Well, that's weird because wouldn't she have to be a resident of the state at the time? I mean, that just seems odd. It seems like
the
Disney
one
lawyers can
shareholder,
easily fight that, right?
the single shareholder that took on Tesla, I don't think he lived in Delaware. He just said, well, Delaware, we're going to choose that. Or Tesla chose Delaware because it's friendly to it's all random. I don't understand.
Texans file lawsuits in Texas because their morals in Texas are offended by actions in New York. So, right,
Well,
like
I mean,
nothing about New York is applied to them,
but you have to. You can do that with a lot of companies because they're selling products in your state.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
sense. To make her as an actor, though, you're an employer or you're an employee in a specific state. So I don't see how that would apply in.
Okay,
I mean, but I don't know. I'm not a legal expert, so.
Yeah.
Because the show is broadcast everywhere. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah, but she's not hired everywhere. She's not doing this as if she was suing on as a viewer of Disney, going, this thing was so horribly done, like the NFL ticket article that you sent. Like, you could probably sue in any state for that.
Well, let's jump to that.
What about the Interstate Wire Fraud Act? It's transmitted across lines.
But again, if you're a customer, if you're a Disney customer, that's different.
That's
Disney customers are in every state. Disney employees, not so much. You're hired in a certain state, and I think if you're doing a wrongful termination thing, you would have to do it from the state you were wrongfully terminated in, unless she had multiple places of residence at the time, because that might not be a year-round gig.
Shot, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe she could make that claim then.
Yeah, Disney really should have just leaned into the fact corporations can fire whoever they want, though. Like, I can't see anybody on the right side going, oh yeah, no, we want to defend that at that point. But she's also got a morality clause, like she's got a public perception clause in those contracts. Like, they could have done any number of things.
They really, with the public figures, the companies can pretty much fire you for saying anything they don't like, because it's like, well, you're not just a guy stacking boxes in the back room. You're like the public face of the company. So I think Disney's going to win this one, honestly. I mean, it's a shitty thing. I don't like what they did, but legally speaking, I think they got a case.
I don't like what they did either, but two thoughts. One, I read about Flo, the progressive woman, or when he was the Can You Hear Me Now Verizon guy, and they both had contracts that they talked about, said, no, there's a reason I'm not on Twitter or whatever. Their contracts state, hey, shut the fuck up. You're the face of progress. And they sign those. And the second thought I have is, in the previous time Jake and I talked about this, the stance Disney should have taken is they literally just fire and say, you're a block of wood. And then if she sues, then all I have to do is show an episode of The Mandalorian, and she delivers her lines. Look out. There is someone behind you. Duck. Yes. She's a bad actress. She is a block of wood. That's why she should have been fired, not because of her opinions.
The only thing that we at Disney hate more than transphobia is her terrible delivery. So we fired her for that. Yeah.
Speaking of lawsuits, this one, is it a lawsuit? FDA warns maker of Sara Lee and Entenmann's not to claim foods contain allergens when they don't. So we see it on every fucking package of everything. This was prepared in a place that may have contained nuts, and they're saying it doesn't. But what we're talking about, lawsuits for everything. Jake and I talk about frivolous lawsuits on here a lot. I get it. I'm on the corporations with this one. People sue for fucking anything. So fuck it. Say, hey, our product is dangerous. If you want to buy it, it's on you, even if it is bread and a donut. I get why they put that on there. People fucking sue and win over everything. So they were just trying to cover their bases.
That said,
I read through that. I couldn't believe it's a lawsuit. It's like, all we're saying is we can't guarantee there's not a sesame seed in this thing. And, you know, Heisenberg and Sunday principle, you don't know where all the sesame seeds in the world are. They could be in there. There could have been a wormhole that opened and just dropped one in. Like, there's a million reasons.
I think that should be their defense right there. Chris, you just gave their defense. Who's to say whether there's a sesame seed on this planet?
That's right.
I'm going to need an intimate delivered.
Sometimes we got rogue employees that just wander around about a week and a half after they put their 2-week notices, just eating handfuls of peanuts, just throwing them up in the air, just trying to catch what they can over the vats. And sometimes peanuts go into the bread vats. And so we don't, these are crazy motherfuckers we hire. Crazy.
Have you ever tried eating anything on a sesame seed bun in your car? Like
Oh,
you
you're
find
right,
sesame
right.
seeds
You
for
have a
3 weeks.
sesame
Yeah,
seed shirt
everywhere.
after that.
You'll find
Yeah,
it weeks later down
exactly.
in the stick shift or by the yeah.
That's
Did you
right.
read further down in that article though, where now companies add just a little bit of sesame seeds or whatever it is to every product to make sure it's a true statement?
Oh,
God
that's
damn right. I love
fantastic.
it. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. But the thing is I kind of get the pushback against these companies too, because if you're going to make people like, oh, hey, put that this has nuts or whatever's in it, like it's got to have these warning labels, otherwise you're going to get sued for $1 trillion by some random person who should have been reading ingredients anyway. Like if we're going to live in that country, then all the companies are going to start putting this on every single product they have just so they don't get sued. It's like, yeah, it might have shrimp and it might not. I know it's just Wheaties, but like whatever.
Well, it's like
If all the companies, they're going to have to nip that in the bud at some point, because if all the companies start putting include nuts on every single product, the label means nothing after a while. If it's on every
Yeah.
product in the superstore, in the supermarket, then the label means nothing. And I think that's what they're kind of running into now.
well, I'm sure you've both heard of this. I experienced it. I lived in California, but it's widely known that California fucking everything has been known to cause cancer. Like in Starbucks, you'll see a certain atmospheric, like, oh, that wood beam in your house. Like they find the smallest, minute, just everybody slaps a label on that says whatever this product is contains something that has traces of something that has been known to cause cancer. And
warning, everything in our
dismisses
store
it.
will kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I want to quick jump to another story as we run out of time. Let's skip that one. I want to hit two stories. Jake and I talk about scams and how people last week we found these people that spent like $20,000 to buy a fake dog from a breeder. They just kept sending money like, oh, it needs a license. And we always say that we victim shame. We're like, if you're going to spend $20,000 to someone online, I found the perfect scam. This is beautiful. It's this. She thought she found the perfect Milwaukee apartment. It was part of a nationwide scam. And the reason this is perfect is just $600. That's it. You go around, you cast a wide net, you tell all these people, you don't commit the big fraud of trying to get people for 20,000 or 30,000. You just
It did seem unreasonable. No.
you put down a deposit and then you disappear. So I do not victim blame the woman but let's jump off that story because here's the big one.
You know how rare it is to find a victim that Timmel doesn't victim blame? She should get a fucking award. She should get her $600 from this podcast.
$600, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, final story.
Dude, I will say that made me sad reading that. Living in New York, I was like, even the fake deposit was only $600. Jesus, you can't even get a fake deposit here for anything less than $1,200.
That's Milwaukee. All right, final story and really fast. Supreme Court rejects appeal from ex-reality star Josh Duggar. Okay, Josh Duggar is a human piece of shit. I do not want to give him any props except for the fact, I mean, my God, the balls on the guy to say, all right, I'm a convicted child pedophile, porn, diddler, piece of shit human being. I'm going to take my case to the Supreme Court. Oh, the balls on him to try and get the Supreme Court to like, hey, this random fucking pedophile that happened to be on TV. Yeah, let's hear his case and overturn it. I think they have bigger things, better things to do. Now they're doing them all wrong. Every Supreme Court ruling that came down pretty much was shit this past term.
Yeah.
Although the last one was fucking interesting. The fact that Brown sided with the conservatives and Coney Barrett on which one was I forget, but that was an interesting. But holy shit, the fact that he wanted his pedophile case to go to the Supreme Court, God bless him for trying.
I hope his lawyer argued it passionately, like Matthew McConaughey at the end of A Time to Kill. I hope he was sitting there going, look, first they came for the pedo guys with the 12-year-olds on their laptops, and I said nothing. You know who else used to lock those guys up? Hitler. That's right. This is a slippery slope to fascism. We got to let the Duggar guy out of jail.
Look, Duggar read the room. Duggar read the room. He's like, all right, we've had some changes as Supreme Court. I know what world we're living in. Epstein's a hero. Let's go ahead and shoot our shot.
Weinstein just got out of jail, and we're about to elect a rapist back into the White House. This is my time.
He's like, I've got a shot. He's
Timing is
looking for
everything
that.
in my business of pedophilia, and this is my time.
He's looking for his Angel Studios biopic to be released. That's what
Yup.
he's going for, and he needs that Supreme Court moment.
That's
so.
right. He's going to get Kevin Spacey to play him too. He's coming back as well.
But see, now I have a role for Gina Carano. Like, we could create a movie where she travels back in time and puts child porn on his laptop just to set him up, and then they both. That's a movie
That's
right
right.
there. I'd watch that. I'd
That's
watch.
right,
I'd
Gina.
watch Duggar like get set
I-
up to the sci-fi
I
story.
almost agree with you, but
Because
she
he
would
was
have
going to say what was really in the vaccine. That's right.
Gina, because they both align the same way conservatively. Gina
Yeah.
would have to be the private investigator that knows that a liberal went back and put the
Oh,
child stuff
yeah.
on his. So she's gonna clear his name. All right,
Yep.
we are out of time.
They
Jake,
switched his laptop with Hunter Biden's.
Jake
She was a
can be
replicant
found
the whole time.
at Jake Vevra on all social media. Twisted Cupid live on YouTube every Thursday. I can be found at nathantimmel.com, t-shirt store, special on YouTube there. Chris, where can people find you?
ChristopherSear.com. CYR is how you spell the last name. I put it there. Christopher because of legal reasons. And also Chris D. Sear on Instagram. That's probably the best place.
And I'll put that up written so you don't have to spell it. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for being on the show,
Thanks,
man.
Chicago's Comedy Scene Radio Network. Jake, nice seeing your face.
Thanks.
Disney just gave Josh Duggar a 2-year deal to play Han Solo.